I plan on making a segmented bowl out of these two boards here. This is a piece of pecan and this is a piece of walnut. They're both very attractive boards. This particular board, this pecan, I've been holding on to this for over 40 years. I made my wife a turning. It might look like a bowl, but I made it as a box. It has its own lid. It's pretty good sized. And this is what I had remaining from it. And I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to decide how to use this piece. And now that's what I'm going to do. So this is the segmented turning that I made around 40 years ago. It's basically a little box. This is almost completely made out of pecan except for the walnut that's in the center here. Alright, I have my fixture set up. I think the angle is about as close as I can get it for the complex joint that I'm creating. I will stop set up here to make the sizes equal. I'm pretty sure I have enough to get 4 pieces out of this board. I don't want to have to cut the rest of the piece up, but it seems I'll have plenty. So now I'm going to do it. This is such a beautiful piece of wood. I'm just hoping that what I have visioned is going to work. So there's one piece. What I have to do is turn this board over, and I'm going to waste a little bit here because I have to re-establish the first angle. Well, here I have 4 of my walnut segments left, and I had that much left out of my board. There's the 8 segments. There's 4 walnuts, 4 pecans. That should make a complete circle. It looks like it's missing segments, but once the joints are put together on the miter that's in them, then the intentions are for them to complete the circle. The next thing I plan on doing is taking the segment and gluing the accent strip on one side. What I plan on doing is using rubber bands as a clamp just to hold them into position. It has a nice flat joint. I can make little adjustments this way and get them all glued up. There's all 8 pieces with the strips glued on them. So here I have 2 of the segments, the pecan and the walnut, and the strip in between them of Wenge. I taped this back side to act as a hinge with duct tape. I will end up gluing that surface, taking a rubber band and stretch it across here. The only way I could figure out to get a good clamping on here. Never done it this way before. I'm having hopes that it's going to work. Okay, it looks nice and tight. Well, I have all 4 sections glued up. Okay, I have these set up in a little fixture. I have a nice joint on the angles, and I'll be assembling it right here. So these 2 halves are sitting here. I've glued the joint up and down there, and I'm just going to let them sit. They don't need to be clamped. It fits quite well. This is, from what I can see, is very flat on both sides. That means if I get the other one like this, it should go together. And if it needs just a little bit of tweaking, it's not going to affect the dimension here to where you can visibly see anything different. So I'm going to let that sit for maybe an hour or two. It's time to go have a cup of coffee. It's a little chilly out here. Here I am cutting the bottoms flat. This will help with the next gluing setup. Cutting all of this on my Rikon 10325. It's one of the 14-inch model band saws. It'll cut 13 5/8 width and a little over 12 inches into height. I have it on 110 and I've cut 12-inch thick oak with it, and it's gotten through pretty decently. But it's a good saw. It has nice adjustments on the table, and what I'm really impressed is when you hook a 4-inch dust collector to it, it really pulls that dust out. I went ahead and cut the tops while I was at it just to get the material out of the way and make it easier to turn. I went ahead and glued the joint on here, pushed it together. Looks like it's right where I want it. This thing's too hard to clamp, and as long as you have a perfect glue joint, or as perfect as you can get it, you don't really need to clamp segments like this. At least that would be my opinion, not necessarily everybody's opinion. If you feel unsafe not clamping on them, then I would recommend trying to figure out a way to clamp the segments. I'm comfortable with doing it this way. I've glued segments together without clamps many times, especially when they have to be put together like this. Here the bottom is being glued in place. Well, I've got this latest bowl mounted in the lathe. I have a piece of ash that it's going to be the bottom. I use an extra thick piece just to give this some rigidity. I'm not sure what shape I'll end up with there, so I just as soon have more than not enough. And definitely gonna have some corners to get rid of. And I'll flatten this face off, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and make a segmented ring to go on here, just because these are half end grain and half flat grain joints. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I like the idea of having that little decorative ring on top anyways. I've got it set up on a little different angle. I had the tailstock pressed against a flat board. Keep it on there for as long as I can. It's held on pretty good in a dovetail jaws, but there's no reason that I can't have it there right now. Alright, got my face shield. Standing back out of the way, I'm going to start on the outside edge. About 500 just to start with. Well, I've decided to go ahead and rough the inside and the outside out. These are only about 7/8 thick pieces. I'm pretty certain that I have the material there, but I could have miscalculated. Okay, I won't block it from here. I'm using this round nose scraper here. It cuts pretty good on segment. Okay, they're all cleaned up. See what I got here. Oh, yeah. That's fine. Pretty consistent. I decided to go ahead and make a ring for the top. I cut it and glued it together off camera, but you'll see it soon. So my ring is glued on for the rest of the bowl. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this is a piece of jatoba. It's really a pretty wood, and I think it's going to be just the right contrast to the other woods that are in there. Right now I'm just going to make this round on the outside and the inside, and then I'll look at what sort of a shape I can get. Let's see how this 1/2-inch bowl gouge works out. Alright, that's pretty round. I'll do the inside now. I'm going to leave this tailstock up against this block I have. Just because it's big, it's not round yet. I don't want anything to catch in there and then rip this out of the chuck. You can see this line is starting to sharpen up. That means that everything is getting cleaned up between the segments and that bottom. I'm going to go ahead and scrape the bottom and up the sides a little bit. A little tighter radius on the end, so maybe I can get in there with that. This is a flat negative rake scraper I'm using here. I use a digital angle finder to set to 31 degrees on my grinding platform. It works quite well. Working on a little shape right now for the bottom. Right now I'm doing a little work on the very bottom of the bowl. It's coming along pretty good. I keep checking it to figure out if this is exactly what I'm looking for. But I don't know what I'm looking for until it happens. I've always used a pencil to mark areas that I want to remove. It just makes it a lot easier when you have wood spinning and you can't see the area that well. Back up to the top rim to make a little final change in the shape, and then I just about have it. A little blending with a negative rake scraper. Time to sand. Well, that was quick. The sanding is done. Now put some finish on it. I start with a shellac-based sanding sealer, and then I move to a spray-on lacquer. I'm using a Deft brand here. I have used Deft lacquer since my high school days, and I assure you that is a very long time ago. Alright, here's the bowl. Probably have got 8 coats of lacquer sprayed onto it. It is very smooth, but I'm going to do a wet and dry with probably a 1200 grit, and I'll polish it out. I did sand the shellac after it was dry, and each coat of lacquer after it was thoroughly dry. I lightly sanded it. Well, here's the chuck I'm going to use to hold my segmented bowl. I turned the recess in here and a step down. I left a little clearance so that when I put this in I can have padding all the way around it. And I'm going to make little clamps that screw onto here and hold it on the rim. Okay, I have it mounted in my jam chuck. I've got this nice soft cloth in here that my wife kindly gave me. I'm going to just see if the thing is centered, because I have an existing center in there and it hit it right on. Runs very true. I wrap the bowl with this soft cloth to protect it from any drips from the lacquer I'm rubbing on. Here's the finished bowl that I did. Measures 13 inches across the diameter at the top. It's 4 1/8 inch from the bottom to the top. And the base is 7 inches across right here. So the woods I used in here, starting with the top rim, that's a piece of jatoba. Then in the segments, there's a black walnut, there's the pecan. The strip in between the segments is Wenge, and that bottom base is a piece of ash. I'm very happy with the bowl, and I hope you like it.